white people are allowed Wi-Fi?
And her dad went all the way to Australia.
This is going to be the most exciting night of my life.
I'm Alexander McCall Smith, and I'm reading the story Irdon's Detectives by Alex O. Zip is an 18-year-old dragon who lives on planet Irdon. He was born on planet Bam and lived there until he was 10, with his mother, father, aunt and uncle, until Bam exploded and all his family were killed. Luckily, Zip had been exploring a nearby planet called Irdon that day. He'd been walking around Irdon, feeling sad and lonely, when he met a lizard called Max. Max explained that he was lonely too, and that he had also come from a planet which had exploded, and after realizing how much they had in common, they decided to be friends. Zip is happiest when he's with his friend Max, but he also enjoys flying under and over houses like a racecourse, and giving Max rides on his back. On planet Irdon, the houses hover in the air and are made from candy. If someone eats a bit of the house, it always grows back. One Saturday night, Zip and Max were playing their favourite game of flying under and over houses like a racecourse. Max had brought 2 high-vis jackets from his previous planet and suggested that they wore them to be as safe as it was dark outside. Irdon's Supreme Leader Sloth saw them with their high-vis jackets when he was hovering home to his castle. He called them over and told them that on planet Irdon you are not allowed to wear high-vis jackets. He could tell that they were not from planet Irdon, so he was not angry about it, but he gave them a warning and explained all of the planet's rules to them. He told them that no hands are ever allowed inside green slime balls, or they would be sent to jail, that no triangles with round corners are allowed, and that all cats have to wear futuristic sunglasses or they would be banished from the planet. And if they see a cat without futuristic sunglasses, they must give notice to a police officer. He also told them that pets roam free, so they are friends, not pets, and they can do whatever they like. The next day, Max and Zip went to the map store and saw from a map that all the planets around Earth have exploded, except for Earth, so they got curious. They also realized that Irdon is next to explode. Then they rushed to Supreme Leader Sloth to tell him that what they had found out, but the guards didn't let them in because Supreme Leader Sloth was having a pedicure, so they had to do it themselves. They planned to ride on Zip to Earth, but it was too far to fly. But conveniently, a spaceship was parked at Tesco next to the castle, so they went by spaceship, but first they stopped off at KFC for drumsticks and boneless chicken because they were hungry, and then they went to Earth. It took them a day to get there. When they arrived at Earth, they looked around for anything suspicious and found a secret lab. They knocked on its door, and a man in his 40s with blonde hair, wearing a lab coat, came to the door. He just stared at them, saying nothing. They asked if they could go inside, and he said, "No, it's classified." Zip and Max walked around the back of the lab and tried to find another way in. They found a window open at the back, but it was high up. Max climbed on top of Zip and tried to reach up to climb into the window, and they succeeded by climbing up and through the window into the lab. In the room, they found a big red button with flashing lights and a big screen. On the screen, it showed all the planets, and Irdon was highlighted in red. Max thought that if they pressed the button, it would set off bombs to explode Irdon, so they tried to stop the machine. In the room, there was a generator, so Zip opened it and saw 2 wires, a red one and a blue one. Zip thought the blue wire would stop the bombs being set off, but Max thought the red one would shut down the system, and the blue wire would set off the bombs. So they did rock, paper, scissors to decide who could pick the wire to cut. Zip won and chose to cut the blue wire, which did shut down the system. The lab man walks in from his lunch break and sees the system had shut down. He saw Zip and Max and started to panic and says, "What have you done?" He tried to grab Max, but Max ran through his legs and towards the door. Max and Zip ran out of the lab and tried to find it where they'd parked their spaceship. Zip spotted the spaceship and they ran for it. The lab man was chasing them, but they escaped and flew back to Irdon. Supreme Leader Sloth greeted them, and they told him what they'd done. The Supreme Leader was joyful and created a celebration for all of the planet Irdon. He gave Zip and Max a medal for their hard work and bravery and congratulated them as heroes. Everyone thanked them for saving their planet. Max and Zip went back to their normal lives, feeling happy and proud. The next day, they were greeted by Supreme Leader Sloth and the guard, who handed them 2 small boxes. They opened them and found 2 detective badges inside. Supreme Leader Sloth said, "Both of you are Irdon's new detectives." Zip and Max were so excited and couldn't wait for all the adventures to come. The end.
Hello, my name is David, and I'm going to introduce a story by Alexander S. called Escape from Irdon. It's a great story. I loved it because it really imagines this epic battle and excellent vocabulary, great narrative drive throughout, and above all, it was comprehensively imagined. So I enjoyed it, and I'm sure that you will. So here's Escape from Irdon. It was dark in the pod. The lights had stopped several missions ago. Puck was staring into the mask of another skymond searcher. He hadn't bothered to learn their names. As far as he was concerned, his occupation was just temporary. As soon as he had enough skymonds, he was out. Puck was a skymond searcher, and he hated his job and the planet he was exiled to. It was ridiculous. Just because he was on the losing side of the war. On Irdon, as the planet was called, everything had to hover, as the ground was made of toxic waste. He looked down. He was hurtling downwards through layers of mist, the toxic ground almost looking like it was rising up to catch him. Then, smash! The pod hit the ground. The metal walls shook as though they were made of jelly. He was knocked out for a few minutes, but apart from that, he was fine. All the other skymond searchers were long gone, and all that was left was a spare hazmat mask and suit, the same kind of suit that Puck was wearing. Puck never understood why he always seemed to black out, but it didn't matter now. Cautiously, he wrenched himself up and activated his hover mechanism. By some miracle, it started first time, its motor spluttering and struggling to hold him in the air as he hovered in the menacing fog and hostile terrain. Hours later, Puck was still tirelessly hovering. Boredom was beginning to kick in until one of his motors finally died. Walking would severely slow his progress. This wasn't going well. But soon everything was about to change. Many miles away, under a pile of toxic junk, emerged a rustic, metallical silhouette. Pushing aside the rubbish, it rose to its full height until, clumsily, it stumbled to the left and sank back into the waste. Now, meanwhile, Puck was struggling to traverse this hideous terrain. The fog was also not aiding his situation, and it was growing more dense by the second. Skymonds are the currency of Irdon, and they rained from the sky. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds as if anyone can get them, and even if they don't do any work. But remember, no one can touch the ground of Irdon without special suits. So most of the skymonds end up out of reach of civilians. Anyway, lesson over. Moving back to the story. Puck was rummaging around in a junk pile when suddenly a grinding metallic voice said, "You threw me into the wasteland. Now I will punish you. Puck jumped a mile and frantically scanned his surroundings. He spotted a figure emerging from a nearby junk pile. It was a mistake to come back for me, it croaked. Now I will terminate you. By now the figure was fully out of the junk and walking towards Puck. You know who I am, don't you? Spanner Cat 2099, it called menacingly. No, I am not Spanner Cat. He emerged from behind the curtain of green fog. It swirled as each of his rusty metallic body parts pushed through it. And this is our introduction to Spanner Cat, and there is an absolutely epic confrontation between the two characters. But for all of that, you're going to have to read the book. I'm not going to read any more, but I know it's just one of the many stories that you will enjoy in it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Kennard, and I'm going to be reading from the book Irdon, the Book of Super Sorcery, written by P7 pupils at Wardie Primary. The Thunder Rifle by Haldor M. The assassin stalks his target through the night. He leaps onto the building, made out of sweets, and readies his thunder rifle. He takes aim and... boom! A burst of flame and the assassin's target is blown away into the night. Spanner Cat sighed. Being part cat and part spanner, he was perfectly at ease with his work. He'd found work as an assassin quite easily and soon became a legend among them. He didn't normally have any trouble taking down his targets, but his current one was being very slippery. Finally, Spanner Cat reached his destination. In front of his spaceship was a huge castle. He leapt onto the doorstep and kicked open the door. Standing in the courtyard were 4 armed mecha sloths. Spanner Cat sighed. Why did everything have to be so complicated? All he wanted to do was catch a lift from his friend Zip. Behind the mecha sloths was a cage. Spanner Cat swore under his breath and pulled out his thunder rifle. Bam! Bam! Brilliant. And I just want to say a massive congratulations to all the Superpower Agency young writers. Your writing is awesome. Keep going.